All right, so ready to dive into some serious labor history today.
Absolutely. Always up for a deep dive into the past.
Great. And especially when it involves something as impactful as what we're talking about today, right? I mean, we're going all the way back to the 1930s.
Yeah, the 1930s, wow. A pivotal era for American workers, for sure.
Definitely. Think about it. No 40-hour work week, no minimum wage, child labor. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. It's hard to imagine the realities of that time, especially during the Depression. Jobs were scarce. People were desperate for work.
Right, any work.
Yep.
And they were willing to work in pretty awful conditions for, like, next to nothing.
Exactly. Companies, well, a lot of them really took advantage of that situation, profits over people.
Yeah. So how did things start to change? I mean, how did we get from that kind of grim picture to where we are today?
Well, a big part of it was the Fair Labor Standards Act, the FLSA.
The FLSA.
It was passed in 1938. Game changer.
Okay, so the FLSA 1938, that's what kind of set the stage for workers' rights as we know them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it laid the groundwork for so much. Fairer workplaces, workers actually having some power, some say.
Okay, so let's break it down. What exactly did the FLSA do? What changed?
A lot. For one, it established a federal minimum wage.
So before that, no minimum wage.
Nope. Companies could pay whatever they wanted.
Wow. Okay, so minimum wage. That's huge. What else?
Well, it set a maximum work week and introduced overtime pay. So that's kind of where our 40-hour standard comes from.
Makes sense. I guess those things seem so normal now. It's hard to remember they weren't always there.
Right, like revolutionary concepts back then.
Absolutely. Was there any pushback, though? I mean, did everyone just embrace these changes?
Oh, not everyone. Some industries weren't happy, especially those that, relied on child labor.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's heartbreaking to think about, but, like, families depending on those kids' wages.
Yeah, it was a complex issue for sure. But in the long run, banning child labor was a huge step forward. Kids could finally, go to school, have a childhood.
Definitely.
Yeah.
A moral victory, for sure. And it shifted society's view of children's, place in the world, right?
Exactly. The government started to expand social safety nets and education became more accessible. So, yeah, it was a big change for everyone.
And the FLSA's impact goes way beyond just child labor.
Oh, absolutely. It really set the stage for all kinds of future labor movements. And even today, I mean, think about the debates we have now about raising the minimum wage or the gig economy, workers' rights in those new kinds of jobs.
It's all connected.
It really is. The FLSA, it's like this foundation, It's still relevant, still shaping these discussions.
Wow. It's amazing how one piece of legislation from the 1930s can have such a lasting impact.
It is. It shows how much power there is in collective action, in fighting for what's right.
Definitely. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? What should they really think about?
I think take a moment to appreciate the rights you have as a worker, the 40-hour week, minimum wage, safety regulations, all of that. And then ask yourself, what can you do to carry that legacy forward? How can you make sure workplaces are fair and equitable for everyone?
Yeah, that's powerful. Whether it's advocating for better wages, supporting unions, just being aware of these issues.
Exactly. It's all about continuing that fight, that push for a better, more just world for workers.
Absolutely. So folks, keep that in mind. The fight for workers' rights, it's an ongoing thing, and each of us can play a part.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The FLSA was a huge step, but the journey's not over.
Right on. All right, that's a wrap for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure. Until next time.